Hi there, I'm Jackie Hill and welcome to video 2 in this 3-part video series on how to deal with cravings and urges to smoke. So if you've watched video 1 in this series, you will know how you can minimise the frequency of cravings by first identifying the triggers that remind you to smoke. The next thing is then to eliminate them or avoid them altogether, at the same time developing new healthier habits and focusing on what you gain by not smoking. If you haven't gotten round to watching this video yet, then I urge you to do so before watching this one. In reducing the frequency of cravings, particularly during the first few days of quitting, when most of the cravings are due to the physical withdrawal of nicotine, you will stand a better chance of succeeding long term in your goal of quitting smoking forever. Changing your routine by installing new, healthier habits, you will find that after around 30 days or so, you will feel less inclined to automatically do those old habits that you link to smoking. And in recognising the psychological triggers, that's those feelings of reward or benefit that you get through smoking, then taking action by focusing on positive, healthy rewards instead. In doing so, you will feel empowered in resisting temptation to turn to cigarettes and tobacco products. So if you haven't already watched video 1, go back now and watch it and benefit from all those things that I've just mentioned. In today's video, we will be looking at more deeply at the psychological source of craving. In particular, we will be dealing with those intrusive and invasive automatic thoughts that just seem to come from nowhere. They come completely out the blue and catch you unawares and off guard. These thoughts are very dangerous because they can jeopardize your success. So we'll be dealing with that today, so make no mistake, the battlefield of quitting smoking takes place in your mind. So here are some suggestions as what you can do when you get these thoughts about smoking. Well, rule number 1 is to stop trying not to think about smoking. Accept that you will get these thoughts, and the best thing is to embrace them as best as you can. Your mind will constantly remind you that it's time to have a cigarette, and that smoking will give you a reward of some sort. This is because you've been doing these things for some time now, and it's just learnt behaviour and learnt responses to situations. So until you install a new set of behaviours and responses, your mind will consistently remind you to smoke. So accept this as part of the process of quitting, and understand that if you continue to not smoke and develop new healthier habits and responses, these thoughts about smoking will eventually disappear. So follow my suggestions in these video series to help you to do this. Now, rule number 2 is to stop fighting the thought. Most people make the mistake of resisting the thought by fighting it, either by pushing it away or by talking to it. This simply does not work. In doing this, all you'll find is that the thought becomes more intense and powerful. This is because the subconscious part of your mind needs to make that conscious part aware that you need to smoke, and does this by reminding you of all the mistaken benefits that you believe you will receive by smoking. And it will continue to remind you, gaining in intensity and urgency until you take notice of it. So the more you resist it, the more your mind will persist with it. It's a bit like burying a man alive. He will keep scratching away inside of you until he can get out to the surface. So remember, the more you push away the thought of having a cigarette, the more persistent the thought becomes, and voila, your willpower is broken and you cave into the craving. Fighting a craving thought is not the way to win. It is a sure way to lose. So let's now look more closely at these thoughts. I call these thoughts stinking thinking, because these kinds of thoughts are thoughts that pollute your life. They just serve you no good whatsoever. So here's how to recognize them. They are usually automatic. These thoughts just seem to come from nowhere and without any effort from you whatsoever. They just pop into your head in an instant. Secondly, they are involuntary. You don't choose to have them. For example, you don't think about the thought intrudes on your mind. They're distorted. They don't fit in with all the facts. For example, the thought may be, I'm useless, or I can't stop smoking. Well, this is not a fact, as there are many things that you can do. Stinking thinking is unhelpful, and these thoughts hold no benefit for you whatsoever. They rob you of your peace and joy and keep you from making those positive changes in your life, such as stopping smoking. And stinky thoughts are plausible. Generally speaking, you never question them and simply accept them as the truth. For example, if you feel that you are weak and you find it a struggle to quit, you find yourself start believing that thought. And the reality of it is that you're not weak, because there are many things that you do very well and many things that you have strength on and tenacity about. So although these thoughts may seem to come from nowhere, quite often they are linked to a core belief or some experience in the past. For example, if you find that you believe that smoking helps you deal with stress, even though that's not true, because all you've done is alleviated the stress of having a cigarette, not actually gone to the core reason for the stress, then your mind will remind you of that, and these thoughts will come to that core belief. So stinking thinking comes from rotten garbage. It's those bad habits. It's those past experiences that you've had where you've believed that you can't do it. And anything like that stinks and it needs to be disposed of. So I shall be looking at how you can deal with these beliefs in the next video. So make sure you don't miss it. That's video 3, folks. So coming back to this one, a negative thought is not dealt with. So a thought about having a cigarette because you feel bored, if you don't deal with it, it will lead to a negative emotion. That is that uncontrollable urge whereby you need to have a cigarette, which leads to the negative action or behaviour, which is actually having a cigarette. If you dwell too much on these thoughts, you'll start preparing your body for a cigarette. You'll remember, for instance, all the things that you enjoyed about smoking, and then you'll feel physically a need to have a cigarette. You'll want to have a puff, and you will kid yourself that just one puff won't do any harm. And the next thing you know, your hand is reaching for that cigarette. All the time, you're justifying in your thoughts, I'll just have one, it'll be okay, etc., etc. The next thing that happens is that you punish yourself for giving in to the thought by telling yourself after you've had your cigarette, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I'm weak, I've no willpower, I'm bad, I'm hopeless. And you even convince yourself that you might as well just quit trying. So here's what you do. As soon as those thoughts come into your mind, the first thing you need to do is notice them. Notice the thought and accept it as best as you can. Acknowledging the thought at its earliest stage is best. So as soon as you have the thought, say to yourself, I'm having that thought as a reminder to smoke. It's my subconscious telling me it's time to have a cigarette. Now, this doesn't mean that you're dwelling on it. It simply means that you're noticing it. And in doing this, you're receiving the information that the subconscious mind wants to give you, and therein ending the resistance, persistence, tug of war that goes on if you try to push it away or fight it. Okay, so you've received the thought, you've embraced it as best as you can. The next thing is to make a conscious choice on how you're going to deal with it. So if now the thought is about having a cigarette with a coffee, there you are about to have a coffee and you feel like a cigarette, the thought comes in about having a cigarette. So acknowledge, yes, actually in the past I always had a cigarette at this time. So you've received it, you've acknowledged it. The next thing to do is affirm then the new behaviour that you want to implement. And you can think this, or you can say it out loud. You can say, I choose to drink my coffee smoke-free. I choose to have my cup of tea without a cigarette. That way you are then hammering the point home to your subconscious mind that you are not going to give in to this urge. It's a reminder, that's all it is. You don't have to give into it. You can make a conscious choice not to. And you can affirm that by saying in your head or out loud, I'm going to have this coffee smoke-free. And the next thing to do to really hammer the point home is to visualize yourself beforehand drinking your coffee without the cigarette and feeling all the great emotions that you feel in doing that, that sense of achievement, that you can do this, that power, the surge that you get when you experience that you can achieve something. And in following that process, you're receiving the message, which is the thought from your subconscious. You are making the choice consciously not to go along with it, and at the same time you're training your subconscious to receive what we call new programming, which is your new behaviour. This is what I do now. If you follow that pattern, you'll find, if you keep doing that enough times, that the new response, that's the new behaviour, which is having your coffee without a cigarette, will be formed in your subconscious data banks, as it were. Your subconscious will receive that message loud and clear. And the good news, that again over time, is that any new programming supersedes the old. So you'll find that after a period of time, gradually the reminders become less and less until they don't come at all. Now sometimes, particularly in the early stages of quitting, you might find that thoughts about smoking come more frequently, say every 5 minutes or so. And whatever you're doing just doesn't seem that they're going away. Well, don't worry. The important thing is just to keep acknowledging them and reminding yourself of the positive things that you're doing in your life. and you'll find that gradually they will get less and less. But if you do find yourself struggling with these persistent thoughts, and you've taken action by removing yourself away from any triggers, remember we talked about that in the last video, it's likely that the thought you've had has now developed into an uncomfortable feeling. It's moved on into an emotion. In this case, you can do this following exercise. You'll find this will really help. So allow yourself to feel whatever you are feeling in that moment, whether it is stress, boredom, anxiety, whatever it is. Just give yourself permission to feel that feeling. Then ask yourself, could you let that feeling go? Could you let whatever you are feeling go? Is it possible? Are you able to let it go? And just accept whatever comes up as the answer. Whether it's yes, whether it's no, just accept that. Could you let that feeling go? Is it possible? Are you able to? Now ask yourself the second question. Would you let it go? Would you let that feeling go? Are you willing to let that feeling go? And again, just answer yes or no, whatever comes up for you. And then ask yourself this third question. When? When will you let this feeling go? This is an invitation for you. It's an invitation for you to release that feeling. When? Is it now? Or is it in a little while? When you've answered all the three questions, you can keep repeating them over and over again as a kind of self-inquiry until you get to the point you feel that you can let that emotion go and that you feel lighter, happier, and more in control. Visualization is a great tool for releasing and letting go of uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. For example, you can imagine how they look inside your body and visualize putting all of them together, either in your hands and releasing them, or in a ball in your stomach and then breathing them out. So you can just visualize these uncomfortable feelings inside you and collect them all together and just release them, either through your hand or through your breath, whichever feels more comfortable for you. You know, visualizing helps you to focus on the positive benefits too that you'll receive by not smoking. For example, once you've acknowledged a craving thought, you can train your mind to focus on the future new you, enjoying all the rewards of a healthier, happier, more confident person, free from the chains of smoking. When you visualize your new smoke-free life, imagine that you are in the present moment. Use all of your physical senses. Smell fresh, clean clothes, breathe in the fresh air, taste your food and enjoy all the flavors. See yourself going through your day without smoking. In your workplace, in the car, at home, with family. Notice how great you feel when you pass the tobacconist and hear yourself saying no thank you when someone offers you a cigarette. Some people find it difficult to visualize, particularly if they have had no experience of life as an adult non-smoker. This because they started smoking when they were quite young. Or perhaps they just find it impossible to create pictures in their mind. If either of these are you, please don't worry. as this is where your imagination comes in. It can help you. You can just imagine what it would feel like waking up tomorrow morning completely free of smoking. What would you feel like as you go through your day? Notice how different your life would be. Notice the changes and all the good feelings that you have. Our emotions or feelings are important to us. They give us feedback on how things are. So the more positive feelings that you can access whilst you're visualizing, the more powerful the visualization experience is. And if you get any uncomfortable feelings that come up during this process, just use the 3 questions I mentioned earlier. Could you let go of the feeling? Would you let go of the feeling? When? Back to thoughts. We are what we think about. You are the sum total of what you've thought about. Let's think about this for a moment. Everything you are today, everything that you've achieved, done, didn't do, who you are with, where you are living, all came from a thought. Your thoughts have led you to be who you are and what you are doing or not doing in the here and now. So if you think that quitting smoking is hard, then you will find that it is exactly that. Likewise, if you think, I can't quit, guess what? You won't. Now, this is really good news to us because it means that you can think today and create tomorrow. In fact, what you think about today will become tomorrow. This means that you have the capacity to create your own future through just what you think about. Instead of just drifting along through life, lurching from one day to the next, letting your subconscious drive you with urges and cravings and all those things from the past coming up at you. Instead of doing that, you can make conscious choices about your future and make conscious thoughts and decisions. You can choose what to think. You have the capacity to create your future today through what you think about. So it's even more reason to get rid of any stinky thoughts about yourself and smoking and start thinking positively. Remember, you are not your thoughts and you are not your feelings. The conscious you can make those choices and you can start thinking yourself a new you, a person who does not need or desire cigarettes or tobacco products. By deliberately and purposely using your thoughts to create the life that you want to have, you can regularly think about yourself as a person who doesn't desire or need cigarettes, and you will create that person. That will become your reality. So focus your thoughts on all the benefits of life as a person who doesn't smoke, a healthier, happier, freer person, and enjoy the freedom. These are just some of the ways that you can deal with intrusive thoughts about smoking, and I could go on and on a lot more in depth, and I do in my new I Quit program. It's a new program I'm bringing out shortly. It's a course consisting of hypnosis and NLP downloads, as well as a coursework book and obviously a guidebook to take you through the course. And I'll be talking more about that in the next video. The plan is to launch it at a very good price. Within the program, I also deal with the mistaken belief that as a smoker that you have developed about cigarettes and tobacco. And this is the subject of my next video. So in this series, in the video 3, you will learn about how you can deal with those mistaken beliefs that you have about smoking. And these beliefs are what lay behind most of the thoughts and feelings that you experienced whilst quitting. and they often are the cause of sabotaging your journey in becoming a non-smoker, so it's crucial that you do something about them. So I will share with you ways on how you can disempower those beliefs and how to create an empowering new belief system enabling you to conquer smoking forever. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please email me with any questions that you have or make any comments